Last time we were looking at how resonance, how we usually think about that with sound, can also be applied to movement. That's what's so cool about RhythmSpeak.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we can express just through simple gestures, right? When we start thinking about movement in this way.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just about amplifying meaning through repetition like we were talking about with resonance. I mean, even a single RhythmSpeak move can be so powerful depending on the context and how it's interpreted. Like, how do we even begin to understand that?
Right. Well, I think it really comes down to being present and paying attention to all the little details, kind of like reading between the lines, of a poem or a painting.
I love that analogy. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's start with context. What kind of things affect how we understand a certain move?
Well, first of all, the mover themselves can change things up in a bunch of ways, even if it's the same basic move.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so picture someone doing like a pushing gesture. If they do it really quickly and forcefully, it could mean urgency or even anger. But then if they do that same push but slowly and gently, it could mean something completely different. Like maybe they're offering support or encouraging someone to move forward.
Oh, so the speed and intensity changes the whole feeling, even if it's the same basic gesture.
Exactly. And it's not just the mover themselves. The space around them also has a huge impact.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can see how that would make a big difference. Like, let's say someone makes a sweeping gesture in a really small space. It could feel claustrophobic or even secretive, but that same gesture done out in an open field could feel expansive and free.
Exactly. The environment, being close to other people, even the objects around the mover, all of those things add important context.
This makes me think about how important spatial awareness is in RhythmSpeak. It's like the stage becomes another character in the conversation.
Absolutely. And here's something else to think about the transitions between the moves. It's like the punctuation of RhythmSpeak.
Oh, I like that. So a really choppy transition would be like an exclamation point, showing a sudden change or a strong emotion. But a smooth transition is more like a comma, giving a sense of continuity.
You got it. Even though they're not moves themselves, transitions really shape how we interpret the whole sequence. It's like the difference between a telegram with short sentences and a novel with long paragraphs.
Wow, it's already blowing my mind. And we haven't even talked about inference yet. What's that all about?
Inference is where things get really interesting. It's about taking all those clues from the context and using them to figure out the deeper meaning behind the moves.
So it's not just about seeing the moves, but understanding what the mover is trying to say and the emotions behind them. It's like we have to be movement detectives.
Exactly. And just like a detective, you have to pay attention to everything. Facial expressions, body language, even the way someone holds tension in their muscles.
So two people could do the exact same move, but their facial expressions and their vibe could make us interpret it totally differently. Exactly. Imagine someone doing a reaching movement. If their face is full of longing and they look tense, it might show a sense of yearning. But if they do the same reach, but they're smiling and relaxed, it could be an expression of joy or invitation.
That's such a great example of how those nonverbal cues can change the whole meaning of a movement.
It really is fascinating. We rely so much on words, but our bodies are constantly communicating without us even realizing it.
This makes me realize how much I must miss in everyday life. I'm going to have to start paying more attention to how people move, not just what they say.
That's the beauty of RhythmSpeak. It helps us see this whole other dimension of communication that we often overlook.
And we've only just scratched the surface of inference. There's so much more to talk about, like how culture and symbolism play a role in all of this. But I think we should save that for next time. There's just so much to unpack.
So we were just talking about how much our facial expressions and our body language can add to those simple moves. It's amazing how much we're saying without even using words, right?
It's true, we are. And you mentioned that cultural background can also play a role in how we interpret all of those signals.
Oh, definitely. Even though RhythmSpeak wants to be a universal language, we can't really separate it completely from the culture it's being used in.
So a gesture that's friendly in one culture could be totally misinterpreted in another.
That's right. Like, you know how a thumbs up is usually positive in the West? But in some places in the Middle East or Asia, it can be offensive.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. So being aware of those cultural differences is super important for understanding RhythmSpeak.
It really is, and it's one of the things that makes the language so exciting. It encourages people from all different backgrounds to share their perspectives and learn from each other.
It's like a beautiful exchange of cultures through movement.
I love that. And it's not just about literal gestures either. RhythmSpeak can also communicate abstract ideas through symbolism.
Oh, wow. So we're not just talking about physical actions, but also those deeper meanings behind them.
Exactly. So let's say someone does a reaching gesture. It might not mean they're actually reaching for something. It could symbolize aspiration, or maybe they're longing for something.
That's so cool. It's like our bodies are speaking a language of emotions and ideas.
Exactly. And because it taps into that deeper level of communication, RhythmSpeak can connect us in ways that words sometimes just can't.
It really makes you think about how limited our everyday language can be. We focus so much on the literal meaning of words.
Yeah, RhythmSpeak is all about tuning into those subtle cues and appreciating the full range of human expression.
So we've talked about context, inference, cultural influences, and symbolism. What other things should we be thinking about when we try to understand RhythmSpeak?
Well, you have to consider the person's background and their emotional state too, right?
Yeah.
Their experiences, their mood, even their energy level can affect how they express themselves through movement.
That makes a lot of sense. We all talk differently depending on how we're feeling.
Right, and those feelings come out in our movements, even if we don't realize it.
So in a way, RhythmSpeak is helping us be more aware of our own emotions and the emotions of others.
Exactly. It creates empathy and understanding.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. My understanding of movement has totally changed.
I'm so glad. It's amazing how much we can learn when we start paying attention to the language of our bodies.
For sure. But I feel like we've still only just touched the surface.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much more to discover. But for now, let's just take a moment to appreciate all that we've learned and how this deeper understanding of context and inference can enrich our lives, not just within RhythmSpeak, but in all of our interactions.
It's so cool how all these layers of meaning come together in RhythmSpeak, like how context and inference create this whole other way of communicating.
I know, it's incredible. It really makes you realize that there's so much more to communication than just words. It's those little details that can totally change how a move is understood.
Yeah, it's like we're cracking a secret code.
Yeah.
But how does RhythmSpeak keep track of all these nuances? Is there a way they document everything so people can learn it properly?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. They have this whole system called the induction frame. It's like a detailed record for every single move.
So like a dictionary, but for movements.
Exactly. Each induction frame has a video of the move. It has the name and what it means, and like step-by-step instructions on how to do it. They even include all these technical details about the energy and timing of the move.
Technical details. That sounds kind of interesting. Tell me more.
Well, there's something called the point move index. It tells you how long the move lasts and how complex it is. And then there's the performance energy spectrum, which classifies the energy of the move as masculine, feminine, or neutral.
Wait, hold on. Masculine and feminine energy in movement. What does that even mean?
Oh, it's not about like gender stereotypes or anything. It's more about the qualities of the movement itself.
Yeah.
So masculine energy is expressed through strong, direct motions, while feminine energy is more fluid and graceful. And of course, a lot of moves are somewhere in between.
So it's like every move has its own energy, which adds another layer of meaning when we're trying to understand it.
Exactly. And the induction frames help make sure that everyone learning RhythmSpeak understands all those little details.
Wow, it sounds super organized.